exploring the Industrial Revolution. I'm Ben Lipinski, along with my fellow colleagues Vincent Pan, Andrew Hero, Nathan Broman, and Adam Lipinski. Today we will learn about the Industrial Revolution, how it began, and how it changed the world. The Industrial Revolution changed Britain forever. Britain was the perfect place for the Industrial Revolution to happen because of the stable government. The rest of Europe, being unstable at the time, didn't industrialize right away, but were eventually forced once Britain became so strong. The first major advancement that came out of the Industrial Revolution was the textile business, the making of cloths and fabrics. People began to see the opportunities in these factories and began to flock towards cities in a process called urbanization. Since urbanization happened, there was more selection for food and buyable items. The trade also improved drastically. People no longer had to work to buy their food. They were able to get paid. They were also able to do fun things since they weren't working on the farm all the time. People still own farms, just like today, but these farms were for profit, not to survive. This left Britain extremely strong, making them a powerhouse throughout Europe. This change can be seen today with our advancements in factories and other technologies. The seed drill increased agricultural productivity by introducing mechanical precision and consistency to farming, and increased efficiency by combining 3 jobs into one. Plows in the front of the machine turned over the soil. A mechanism in the middle dispensed the seeds from a hopper, making sure each one landed where it was supposed to, and a rake at the back covered the seeds so the bird couldn't get them. Landowners also began enclosing their fields to keep out the small farmers, so they could grow large quantities of a single crop to sell on the urban and global markets. The farmers then had to move to cities to find jobs in factories.
Resources such as coal and iron played an important role in the Industrial Revolution. Coal was an effective fuel to power steam engines and smelt metal. Cast iron could easily be poured and shaped in molds to make strong parts for machines. Mines were dug all over Britain to meet the demand for fuel and building materials. Children often worked in mines because they were small and could fit in cramped tunnels. Mining was dirty and dangerous work, and accidents were common. Another important part of the Industrial Revolution was the introduction of railroads. Steam engines were already being used in factories and were soon put to use for transportation as well. The steam locomotive was invented by British engineer Richard Trevithick and perfected into a reliable and practical machine by George Stephenson. In a demonstration, Stephenson's locomotive, called the Rocket, reached speeds of 24 miles an hour, which was pretty good when the fastest thing at the time was a horse. It could also haul much more material than a horse and wagon could. Railroads created a cheap and efficient way to transport vast quantities of raw materials to factories and manufactured goods to customers. People could also travel long distances, and food products could be shipped faster to reach the market before they spoiled. The invention of the steam engine kicked the revolution into high gear. Before the steam engine, factories could only be built by rivers to power their machinery. Afterwards, many more sprang up, expanding cities and the economy. Coal was burned to heat water in a boiler, which then turned to steam. The steam was forced into a piston, moving it back and forth. A crank turned the lateral motion of the piston into rotary motion of a wheel that could be used to power almost any machine. Factory working conditions could be very brutal. People worked long hours and were always kept very busy. Many workers were children who started work at a young age. Factories were often dirty, poorly lit, and lacked safety features to protect the workers, many of whom suffered from health problems or were injured or killed by dangerous machines. If someone was injured, they would not be able to work and could lose their job.
To begin with, let's start from the obvious. The Industrial Revolution makes our life easier. With the replacement of needed manual labor, more efficient communication and transportation, we're given more leisure time, which we may use on entertainment that led to the emergence of mass culture or on further improvements of our current living conditions and standards. As a result, our living conditions improved exponentially, so is our GDP, made possible by the more efficient machines, level of greenhouse gas, the human population due to the decrease of death rate as shown in this demographic transition model, ratio of population in urban areas compared to rural areas due to the increase in job opportunities in cities, and other things like life expectancy and literacy rate. Speaking of which is contributed by the popularized education as the market demands more skilled workers and politics demands more informed patriot voters. The Industrial Revolution also is responsible for the rise of middle class that began to thrive economically and more essentially politically as they seek for more power. Thus, this became the start of mass society and democratic movements. Major reforms include improved working conditions, increase of voting rights in middle and lower class as well as in the female population, and the abolishment of slavery. Besides the moral issue, many industrialists began to see them as an economic threat in contrast with the protected paid workers. Therefore, many pushed for its abolishment until 1833 when all slavery was banned from the British Empire. Industrialization brought prosperity to industrialized countries, while, however, in contrast, it's a different story for unindustrialized countries. While the industrialized country thrived, an industrialized country remains the same. This led to the rise of global inequalities and made things like imperialism possible. In fact, by the end of Victoria's reign, the British Empire extended over about 1/5 of the Earth's surface, though it is through trade and colonization that industrialization was able to spread to the rest of the world.
As you can see, the Industrial Revolution has made it possible for us to have the technologies and conveniences that we have today. Looking back to how factories made it easier for us to grow as a society, but also having work conditions be so unjust, you have to wonder if the effects of the revolution, good and bad, were worth what we have today.
Thank you for
watching.
See you
next time.
I'm Ben Lipinski, and from the rest of my crew at Orangutan Productions, we'll see you next week.